I debated having two episodes, so there might be kind of a cut here, and you will be seeing the second part of this episode. But it's just so much work to have a podcast, so I knew we had to do this. It's January 3rd, and I have a new committee, which I sure didn't need more unpaid volunteer work to do, that's for sure. Tangent moment, that was brought to you by my neighbor, who, while I was trying to clear the snow in front of his car, told me that my volunteer work is unpaid for a reason, because it's obviously not important. So we got a big dump of snow, and that really pissed me off. Anyway, I wanted to give a shout out to the big fat fake birth of the colonial savior that Canada is founded upon. Anyway, if you do learn anything from these podcasts and my book club or social media shares, feel free to give a buck to my Patreon account, as apparently my volunteer work does not matter. Anyway, back to the new committee. For those who don't know, the Calgary Board of Education, a monster of a colonial institution here in Calgary, that we either send our kids to or a Catholic-run board, worships monsters like eugenic proponents, like any other colonial structure that founded Canada, whether it's John A. Macdonald, Hector Langevin, or Nellie McClung. While history writes beautiful stories about these folks and, quote, devoting their lives to others, unquote, what it really should read is devoting their lives to colonialism and white people on stolen Indigenous lands. I'm sure all of my listeners can appreciate the ongoing genocide Calgary, Alberta, and Canada continues to thrive on is considered a minority issue, but I think it's a pretty big deal to erase genocide. Like, say, Hitler, or say the worst things to the Jewish community about Hitler's quote-unquote accomplishments. So I'm sure you can understand, beyond the bias, the racism in the actual staff and teachers of the current structure, why Canada is failing Indigenous students in the current colonial system with structural racism and excluding Indigenous education, land acknowledgements, treaty obligation teachings, erasing Canadian policies that created trauma in Indigenous, and having the actual audacity to have a school named Langevin. After years of the TRC report and the RCAP report, still not changing the damn name. So many settlers have tried to institute anti-racism policies decades ago here in Calgary in the education system. Others have spoke out about the Langevin landmarks throughout the city. So as of today, January 3rd, 2021, on their website it states, our school name, Langevin School, was named after Sir Hector Langevin, who was one of the fathers of Confederation. He visited Calgary in 1885, and at the request of City Council, petitioned the Northwest Territories government for funds to build a bridge over the Bow River at 4th Street, Edmonton Trail. From the city website, I would like to remind folks that may not know, Langevin Bridge was renamed Reconciliation Bridge at a renaming event. And I'm just going to take some quotes from the Calgary website. Reconciliation Bridge in Calgary took on its current name change in 2017 to facilitate our city's progress of healing and public truth sharing that acknowledges and redresses past harms. While the name change occurred in 2017, an official naming event took place on May 26, 2018. Calgarians gathered at the south and north sides parts of the bridge to mark the event. Elders gathered on the north side of the bridge and gave ceremonial blessings and prayers to the Creator to inspire the healing of all spirits connected to this land now and in the future, allowing all to exist in harmony. The elders and youth from their communities held a prayer circle before taking a solemn walk across the bridge. The event continued to the south side of the bridge with flag songs, drumming, speeches, and round dance. The renaming of Reconciliation Bridge was supported unanimously by City Council following a notice of motion submitted by Mayor Nahid Ninchi and a majority of the councillors. It is one of the many acts of reconciliation the city has planned with the Indigenous community in and around Calgary. These acts are outlined in the White Goose Flying Report drafted in 2016 to address recommendations made. Calls to action. If I see you use term recommendations, I know you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, City of Calgary. made by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. That's the end of the quote. And you can find that right on their website. So it's very pretty, but it's very colonial, whitewashed, and unaccountable. Langevin is the founding father that was the architect of genocide with Indian residential schools and boarding schools. This is a fundamental racial structure of genocide. It was safer to go to war than the Indian residential or boarding schools. We have unmarked graves around the schools, and sadly, in order to hide their genocide, many school lands have actually been sold to private farmers so that our kids' graves can continue being treated like that. And that's Canada's shame. I've spoken to my own CVE representative face to face, which, while it means everything Indigenous ways, used to mean something in non-Native circles once upon a time too. When we were running, it was clear that my issues of anti-racism and Indigenous issues were beyond her. So I knew my issues were going to go unaddressed, which is partly why I didn't vote for her, and probably won't again. She was politically ambitious, had a great team, got elected, and became chair of the board. The Langevin School Board trustee is someone I'm lucky enough to know, Richard Hare. I know he is supportive, but there are barriers of getting this done. So I was reached out to by a parent of the kids that attend. They had done some work and quit due to barriers. One of those barriers was the lack of Indigenous at the table, and they as settlers did not want to speak for Indigenous. Now to the Indigenous people who listen, yes, I know. Justice reform, child welfare reform, Indian Act issues, sovereignty issues, and stopping ongoing genocide are our key issues, 100%. That said, as Indigenous, we can still add our voice to causes like this one. I've gotten even lateral violence for speaking out against Halloween costumes, for God's sakes. But while I can laugh and brush that off, settlers use it as a moment of confusion. I recently had to explain that on a book club. I'll get there. I don't want to go off script. I don't want to be a token Indian that solidifies and justifies settler colonial racism so openly. In our teachings, we must use our words in a good way, or our families will suffer spiritually from that bad medicine. We must unite and see these issues are interconnected. My child is not the only child disconnected from their settler teachers' colonial teachings. Many Indigenous youth are disconnected from these structures as a result of so many things, including a colonial name like Langevin. We must start somewhere if we want our youth to thrive. If you're Indigenous, I guarantee that there are settlers in your area trying to make changes to honor reconciliation, but are unsure where your voice of support is on an issue. If you're an Indigenous person wanting to help, in this instance, help me, send me a letter explaining why you would support a name change of a school away from Langevin at nativeyyc@gmail.com, and I'll forward it to the CVE and the committee so that they can feel more confident. To the Calgary Board of Education, please change the name of Langevin School. It should have been removed way sooner than now, and instead I'm forced to devote unpaid volunteer time to this because you've marginalized the white settler and Native youth and teachers and staff and community members that have asked you to do this sooner. You expect the lowest economic demographics to do more unpaid work because you refuse to change. Your job is to educate children in a safe environment. Your education that you're teaching is based on is racism, and it's hurting the self-esteem and spirit of Indigenous youth, and inadvertently teaching non-Indigenous it's okay to do it. So change the name. I could go on forever, but I'll tie this to a bigger picture of blind systemic racism in education to honor 10-year-old Isabel Kalak. Tomorrow, January 4th, is Ribbon Shirt Day and Ribbon Skirt Day. Why? Because in Camp Sack Comprehensive Institute, a staff member shamed Isabella for wearing her ribbon skirt on formal day. From CTV's coverage, Isabella's parents said that they were hurt by the incident, adding that they are extremely proud of their Indigenous heritage and culture. We noticed that she was really sad and not being herself, and it was later in the evening that she finally opened up and told what happened. And it broke my heart, said Lana, her mom. We want to be involved in reconciliation and resolving these long-standing racial issues in our schools, in our hospitals, and our police forces. It is something everyone needs to work on, and they need to start right now, says Chris, Isabella's father. So I want to say thank you to CTV for that coverage, and to Isabella. I'm sorry this happened. I wish I could do more to change the system to stop ignorance from hurting your spirit. I know you and your family have taken your power back, and I'm proud of you to support you and this work. And I will be wearing my ribbon skirt tomorrow in solidarity. I will post a picture and I will tag you, and I hope other people do as well. And I want to say thank you for using this as a teaching tool. My 13-year-old daughter was not safe in her schools when it talked about Two-Spirit issues, Indigenous issues. She was marginalized by the very committee that was to come in to teach about Indigenous issues. I don't know what to say about that. She ended up making a beautiful ribbon skirt, and thanks to a friend that did most of the teachings, and then I helped her finish it up. I've been taught many cool things about ribbon skirts. I could probably do a whole episode. But to you and your parents, you are welcome on my show anytime to talk about this or to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And I would be honored to have you on my show. So I just want you to know how grateful I am that you put that out there, and to Chris or Isabella's father, that you made it very clear. Everyone needs to work on this, and they need to start right now. They needed to start yesterday.